Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Thursday, the 15th of January, which makes this the news and events for Wednesday, January 14th, day 1420 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital currently under siege. And Van, what did you do? Set an alarm? I do have electricity. Freedom doesn't last. It is great. It is great. It is amazing how much you miss things like heat and lights. Hey, Jan. Hey, Scotty. Hey, Steve. Yeah, no, you really appreciate the 21st century when it is wrested from you by an enemy hell-bent on freezing you to death in your bed. Hey, Stu. Hey, Seawolf. Hey, Den. Hey, Scully. Hey, Scotty. Hey, John. Hey, Kiwi Annie. Bjorn. Hey, Bjorn. We got the trifecta, Den. We got heat, lights, and water. We're back in the 21st century. Thanks, Walters. I really appreciate that. Hey, Richard Prexis. Arna, good evening. How you doing, flying sunbeams? Hey, Debbie. Hey, Steve-O. Hey, Cyberdoc. Roberto Petruzzo. Buonasera. Come stai? Hey, Matt Wilkins. Hey, Big Deal. A hot meal and it's Christmas. Damn Skippy, Big D. You know, I did burn that soup the other day, but I'm still eating it. And it's not bad. It's just, you know, you get that little taste of the char. It's not great. Oh, look at this. Everybody, if you're looking for a reason to be jealous, Seawolf and Nutmeg are headed to the Canary Islands on Sunday for a little vacation in the sun. Good for you, man. That's awesome. Hey, Ian. I'm tired too, Robert. I don't know who Greg Johnson is, Scully. Is he like an Australian comedian? Lights, camera, action. Thanks, Steve-O. We're doing fine. Hey, Renee Herman. Hey, Lars. I want to be deported to the Philippines. I want to be deported to the Philippines. Hey, Sarah. There's the kid. Guys, the kid is the sponsor of tonight's live. It's the first time he has sponsored. I really appreciate it. I don't have any sponsors for tomorrow or Friday or next week. So if anybody can see their way clear to sponsor a live, that would be great. But in the meantime, let's all thank the kid. I really appreciate it, kid. Hey, Bobby. How you doing, buddy? The teapot is electric. Robert, it's so annoying when the power's out, and just to make a cup of tea, you got to get a pot out and boil some water. Hey, Ben Tilly. Yeah, it's just so annoying. Anyway, the minor inconveniences of my life should not be confused with the genuine suffering of the people of Ukraine. This thing is hard. I had a kid over here last night. He's had no heat in his apartment for 9 days, I think. I think today is day 9. And the power was out so long he needed someplace to charge his phone and get warm. it's it's a tough scene. It's a tough scene. It's very difficult on the older people and the people with children in particular. And you know as well as I do, the people of Ukraine are not going to escape this unscathed. There will be people who freeze to death in this weather. There will be people who contract frostbite in this weather with the lack of infrastructure and lose fingers and toes. That's gonna happen. And it does nothing to bring the war to an end. It does nothing to alleviate the tactical failures on the battlefield, the ongoing tactical failures. It does nothing to alleviate the ongoing diminution of Russian power and influence in the world as one ally after another falls away. And now it looks like the Russians are giving up Cuba, just giving it up. I was watching a Russian mill blogger talk about the fact that what do we care about Venezuela and Cuba? They're in the Western Hemisphere. They shouldn't be in our sphere of influence anyway. They should be in the U.S. spheres of influence, right? This is what Russia wants. It wants the U.S. busy in the Americas and exerting its will over its neighbors in the Americas, while Russia does the same thing, this great power politique, while Russia does the same thing in its sphere of influence, which it thinks is Europe. It gets Europe, the U.S. gets the Americas. That seems to be the deal in the Trump-Putin pact. And there is a pact. There is some kind of an agreement between these two allies about how they're going to split up the world. Now, look, I can't prove it. Just like nobody could prove the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, right? Not until long after the war did we know that there was this secret agreement for Germany to take Central Europe and for Russia to take Eastern Europe, spheres of influence. And it wasn't until even later than that we learned that both sides had plans to backstab the other. Now, if you think that the Third Reich and the USSR could come to an agreement in which they were going to split up Europe between them, and that they both had plans to stab each other in the back, you cannot think for 1 second that Russia and Trump don't plan to betray each other as well. It's honor among thieves. It's what you would expect from both of them. You know, as far as I'm concerned, Trump's already betrayed Putin so much, Putin should just release whatever compromise he has on him. He should take Trump out before Trump takes him out. Because this thing with Maduro could well be a warning to Trump. The Russians may not have the capabilities to extract Zelensky as much as they would like to think they do. They've failed to do it for 4 years. 13 assassination attempts that we know of. And Zelensky is still in his office. I don't know who Sasha Riley is. The name keeps coming up, Richard. I don't know who that is. And so I don't know what that's about. I'll have to take a look at it tomorrow, maybe. Now, here in Ukraine, again, now remember this, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, with its built-in honor of thieves, codicils, that they would betray each other when the time came. And in fact, we saw the Nazis make the first move with Operation Barbarossa and the invasion of the Soviet Empire. Come forward now to last night here in Kyiv. We saw 113 drones come in, 89 of them shot down, 80% interception rate, nearly 80%. But those ballistic missiles are tough, boy. There were only 3 last night. but only one of them was shot down. The other two impacted energy infrastructure inside Ukraine, exacerbating this crisis that's happening at the coldest time of the year. Today, our high was 18 Fahrenheit, which is what, about minus 8 Celsius. That was the high. The low is 1 degree Fahrenheit, minus 17 Celsius. It's tough. It's tough. Today is the first day that I have had heat, light, and water, and internet, right, the quadfecta, for more than 10 hours in a row consistently. Now, the difficulty with this, and the thing that is embarrassing to admit, is that I am in the heart of Kyiv. I am less than 1 mile as the crow flies from the presidential residence and the parliament building. Any place that's going to come back online it's this place. There are hundreds of thousands of my fellow Kyivans who are without power still, or without light. Something like 430 apartment buildings, high-rise buildings, currently have no heat still here in the capital. President Zelensky has announced the formation of a energy emergency response council, or unit, if you will, that will coordinate efforts on an ongoing basis for power restoration across Ukraine, and specifically the capital. And yet people go about their daily lives. In Megamart, with lights out in some of the sections. In the pasta section, in the pickle section, there's really, the way that the emergency lights are, half of the aisle is dark. And people have their phones out. They're using them as flashlights to help other people find what they need. Everybody's got a coat on because there's no heat in there. The people of Ukraine continue to plug along in the midst of this nightmare as best any of us can. Klitschko has called the scale of the disruption unprecedented in 4 years of the full-scale invasion. Well, of course it's unprecedented. The Russians are now producing more drones than they ever have in the past. We believe that drone production is up to 12,000 drones a month. Right? That's like 400 a day. Meanwhile, which means that they have more drones, so they can send bigger drone waves to overwhelm air defense and to strike these critical infrastructure targets that they are striking. More drones, more strikes, and there is no end to this weather in the foreseeable future. The high doesn't get above 22 degrees Fahrenheit right through the next 2 weeks. The long-range extended forecast has us in sub-freezing temperatures as the high every single day, and temperatures well below zero as the low. The Dnipro has frozen right over. Normally, most winters, at least the 2 winters I've been here, 3 winters that I've been here, this is now winter number 4, the Dnipro stayed at least partially open. There'd be a lane of clear flowing water, ice-free, in the midst of the river. That is not the case this winter. The Dnipro is frozen over and frozen solid. Now, somebody had asked last night, or somebody brought up yesterday, the fact that the South Koreans sent a bunch of generators. And the South Koreans did send a bunch of generators, but they are not the only people to send generators. And these generators that just arrived this past week from South Korea are not the only South Korean generators that they've sent over the years. If I'm not mistaken, every single winter campaign, this being the fourth winter campaign, the South Koreans have sent generators. And so has everybody else, the Germans, the Poles, the Baltic folks, the Scandinavian folks, the French, the Italians, the Spanish. Over the last 4 years, the world has sent generators. But today, for the first time ever, we saw somebody send an entire power plant. The Lithuanians deconstructed one of their old Soviet thermal power plants and shipped the entire unit to Ukraine, where it's my understanding it's now in the process of being connected to the grid and should soon go online. The Lithuanians sent an entire power plant. The Europeans have prepared a $90 billion or 90 billion euro, about $108 billion package to keep Ukraine alive. The Spanish just announced they're sending new radars, and the British just announced they're building new missiles for Ukraine. In these stories is the secret to victory. It is the reason why Ukraine will win and Russia will lose. Because you need alliances to win wars. That's what wins wars, is having friends, having alliances. And Ukraine has the friends. Ukraine has the alliances. And they're showing up. As difficult as this situation is, and as bad as I know it's going to be, I know how the Ukrainians are suffering in this situation. Okay. I'm nuts, which I am. Nobody should deny that for a second, but not for the reason stated. This guy wants us to believe that Russia has friends. Really? What friends does Russia have? Because it doesn't have Azerbaijan anymore. It doesn't have Armenia anymore. It's losing Kazakhstan every day. It certainly doesn't have Syria. It doesn't have Venezuela. And now it's just throwing Cuba under the bus itself, because that's what it is to be a friend to Moscow, is to be disposable. Just like a member of their military. I'm getting to China and North Korea, pal. Relax. I'm going down the list first of the Russian losses. Let's not forget Iran. Iran right now is in the midst of what many are calling an irreversible revolution. According to Human Rights Watch, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has already executed, murdered in the streets, as many as 12,000 Iranians. Now, the official number from the government is 2,000. What happens next in Iran is anybody's guess. But as long as Iran is busy murdering its own people, they don't have time to build missiles and drones for Russia. And Russia has depended on those missiles and drones. Bloomberg reported today that since January of 2021, before the full-scale invasion happened, Iran sold weapons to Russia in the amount of about $4 billion, $4 billion US. Today, the Rona, an Iranian dry cargo ship, is sinking in the Caspian Sea. The third such tanker carrying weapons from Iran to Russia to be targeted by the Ukrainians in the last, 3 months or so? Third tanker in the last 3 months. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 4. There was that other one. Because there were 2 tankers last week, one about 3 months ago, and then this one today, the Rona. Now, the Caspian Sea was supposed to be beyond the reach of the Ukrainians. But no, The Caspian Sea belongs to the Ukrainians. We've seen 6 oil platforms hit there and 4, hey birdie, hey laddie, hey blue Ariel Silk, how you doing? And 4 tankers sunk in the Caspian Sea. Even as Iran's power to help Russia is diminishing every day. Now, the questions of China and North Korea. If North Korea is such a friend, why is Russia spending so much time force recruiting from Africa instead of getting more North Korean troops? Why hasn't Kim sent more troops? Seems to be a problem in paradise there. Because you can't tell me that Kim gives a fuck about the lives of his men. He is very happy to sell them to the Russians at $22,268 a piece. Woodstain says Trump wrote Kim a Christmas card. I wonder. Seems unlikely, but it's possible. So, whatever North Korea's situation is, they appear reluctant to send more bodies to Russia. Certainly, they're sending everything else that the Russians want. We believe that they've established at least 5 factories for the production of war materiel to send to the Russians. So they're still selling weapons, but they're not sending bodies. And that's interesting. Now, in terms of China, right, because you keep bringing up China as Russia's friend and partner without limits. Bullshit. China doesn't want Russia to fail, but they don't want them to succeed either. You can be sure of that. China wants a weak Russia that is its vassal state, and they're getting what they want, boy. Russian imports into China don't make up 2% of their imports, but Russian exports to China make up 36% of Russia's exports. And their imports from China make up nearly 40% of their imports. The Russian economy is absolutely dependent on the good graces of Beijing. Make no mistake, China is a weakened vassal state to the Chinese People's Republic. That's reality. And not only that, the Chinese papers are increasingly running articles about how they need to protect their assets in Siberia. We have given all this money to the Russians, made all of these investments in Russia. And now we're worried about social unrest and the sovereignty of our assets. We may have to go into Siberia to secure those assets should there be any civil unrest. Or another take from the Chinese papers is North Manchuria was always ours. The Russian Empire took it from us. We should take it back. We should take land from Russia when they default on their debts to us. So China, while nominally supporting the Russian misadventure in Ukraine, seems to be just sitting back and waiting while it sharpens its carving knife before carving off a piece of Eastern Russia for itself. That appears to be what's going to happen with that. 36 months after the shooting stops in this war, the Russian Federation will be unrecognizable as a state. I don't believe anything else is going to happen. Now, very much like Molotov and Ribbentrop, right? You know the Russians are ready to stab the Chinese in the back, and it appears that the Chinese are just waiting, biding their time before they take what they believe are historically Chinese lands from the Russian invaders. Alliances win wars. Russia is increasingly isolated. It does not have friends in the world that can assist it. And it has demonstrated over and over again in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Syria, in Venezuela. It does not have the resources to assist its allies. Being a friend to Russia means Russia uses you all it can, and when you need it, it takes a powder. It's not there. It's not going to be there for you. That is clear. Meanwhile, everybody's showing up for Ukraine. And I'll tell you something, Ukraine shows up for other people too, right? It's not one-sided. It's not like right? What happened when the Poles got hit with Russian drones? The first thing the Ukrainians did was say, hey, we have experience with Russian drones. Can we send some people there to help with this thing? And they did. When the California wildfires tore up LA, Ukraine sent fire brigades to LA. Now that the Iranian Revolution, or the civil unrest in Iran, has started, Ukrainian Twitter is full of messages of support to the Iranian people. Not the Iranian government, the Iranian people. And it is deeply gratifying to see these people who know what it is to spill their own blood in the defense of their nation, to fight for their own freedom against an aggressor who is better armed, far more cruel and vicious and violent, and ready to take it out on the bodies of Ukrainians. The Ukrainians know what that evil is like, and they see themselves reflected in the fight that the Iranian people have against the sadistic IRGC and others in the government, who see the Iranian people themselves as nothing but sheep that they can slaughter at will. And it is disconcerting to me to hear so many people in the United States talking so badly about Nicole Good, who was murdered, who had all of her rights as an American citizen denied to her by an overreaching, jackbooted thug of the ICE and Trump regime, who shot her in the face 3 times when there was no threat to his life except his small dick energy in the face of a decent, smiling woman. That was it. Shot her in the face 3 times and walked away saying fucking bitch, calling her a fucking bitch. Obscene. It's the victim blaming of the abuser with the power of the state to execute violence against citizens. It is very disconcerting and should disconcert us all. You're not wrong, Bobby. It certainly does have echoes of 1935. Okay, anybody that could say anything that stupid doesn't belong here, because we have a certain level of conversation we like to keep up. And if you're that dumb, we just can't have you here. Okay. It's sheer evil. Woodstain, that's a very disturbing comment coming from you. Very disturbing. I mean, she lived in the neighborhood. They just moved there. The fact that they hadn't changed the plates on their car is nonsense, and certainly not a reason to shoot a woman in the fucking face. What the fuck is wrong with you? that you would say such a stupid thing. You say some weird things sometimes, but that is obscene. Obscene. Ugh. You fucking should be. Ugh. Obscene. You think that AI video that they released where he's on the hood of the car, you think that's real? You gotta be able to tell the difference. What the fuck is this? How did this person get in here? Hacked by the Chinese. Okay. So let's take a look at some other things. The U.S. has frozen visas for Iranians, Russians, and Belarusians, as well as another 75 countries. Now, look, I am not pleased with this. You know, at the same time that we're announcing a new roadmap with the Armenians, we've just blocked all Armenian visas. So the U.S. has frozen visas, according to the State Department. I love the fact that they're keeping out the Russians and the Belarusians. That's great news. The problem is they're keeping out everybody from former Soviet states, as well as a bunch of African states, as well as a bunch of Mideast states. It is so obviously racist on its face that I don't even know what to say. We've already let too many Russians into the U.S., that's for sure. And I'd like to see Russian visas all denied. But these other countries, no, it's very disconcerting. The Kyiv Post is reporting that the Russian soldier with the call sign Altai has been sentenced to life in prison for participation in the June 2024 summary execution of 3 unarmed Ukrainian POWs in the Vovchansk direction. Now, this was one of the first times that we heard, actually, and saw video from a spotter drone of the Russians summarily executing unarmed, bound Ukrainian prisoners of war, which, of course, is a war crime. The thing is, this is the best documented war in all of history. Everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's videotaping. Every drone has a camera. When these executions happened, there was a Ukrainian spotter drone who videotaped them. We have the videotape of this guy executing an unarmed Ukrainian with his hands bound behind his back in contravention of all international agreements and the Geneva Convention. The message here, in my opinion, to every Russian war criminal who has committed crimes against the people of Ukraine, you'll never be safe. There is nowhere for you to hide. The righteous wrath of the Ukrainian people will find you, and you will burn, or you will end up in life in prison with a bunch of murderous, rapacious Ukrainians. I'm sure Ukrainian prison is no joy either. It might not be Russian prison, but it's still fucking prison. And you're a Russian in there. It's not going to go well for this fucking guy. Or for any of the ones that will come after him. Bloomberg is reporting that Iran sold $4 billion in arms to Russia since 2021. Now, dig this. 2.7 billion of those were in missiles, particularly the Fatah 360 missile. Now, we heard about this a couple years ago. Like, I talked about this before, and we've talked about these Ukrainian missiles, or Iranian missiles, sorry. But we have never seen one come at Kyiv or anywhere in Ukraine, to the best of my knowledge. So where did these missiles go? And the short answer is that nobody really knows. Nobody knows what the Russians are using them for. But some analysts suspect that they were rerouted to groups like the Houthis down in Yemen and other conflicts around the world. Madagascar, where the Russians have sponsored a military coup against the legitimate government of Madagascar. Mali, where they've done the same. Burkina Faso, where they've done the same. The Sudan, where they're on the side of the rebels against the government, right? So this question of the Fatah missiles, we don't know if one day we're going to see Kharkiv pounded with a bunch of Iranian-made missiles. The range on these, as I understand it, means that they could only be used up close to the front. You wouldn't be able to hit Kyiv with them. They'd have to be used on places like Kharkiv, Pokrovsk, etc. So we may yet see these Iranian missiles show up in Ukraine, but to date they have not. In Zaporizhia, the Nemesis drone group released video today, which showed the destruction of a Prima radar, P-8 Prima radar, a Tor M2 air defense system, $30 million air defense system, and a Tunguska self-propelled gun. Now, the Tunguskas we don't see very often. This is only the 13th of them to be destroyed. It's an air defense gun or anti-air defense gun, like a Gepard. But it's an older Soviet gun. And we've only seen 13 of them destroyed in the war. And it's like a museum piece. To even bring them out reeks of desperation. So this was the 13th one destroyed in the war. We have seen documented 70 of the Tor air defense systems destroyed. The number could be a little higher, maybe 80, but Russia's still got 130 of them in service, and they are still in production. So Russia can get more. Though how many more a year is not clear. One of the things about Russian air defense assets is that they tend to intercept apartment buildings inside Russia almost as much as they intercept Ukrainian drones. And we saw another example of that today with the release of the footage of an S-300 launch down in Rostov that went wrong. The first two S-300 missiles go up just fine. Then the third one, you see something fall off it, right? Like maybe the booster rocket didn't disengage properly. And then suddenly the missile is curly-cueing right into an apartment block in Rostov, unaliving one Russian civilian and injuring several others. The Kremlin-installed governor of Rostov insisted that it was drone debris that hit the apartment complex, not the missile, even though we have video. It's the most videoed war in the history of the world. Now, I have a correction from yesterday. Yesterday, I said that there were 4 tankers hit in the Black Sea. The Greek company that owns the Freud has denied that ship was hit. So they are saying, no, that didn't happen. We were not hit. Now, the Greek company that owns the 2 Harmony ships has not commented on whether or not they were struck. And neither have the Ukrainians, by the way. While the Matilda's owners confirmed that the ship had indeed been struck, but there was minimal reparable damage to the deck, and that the ship was now sailing away from Novorossiysk. Now, see, it's my opinion, and it's a dangerous game to play, but it's my opinion that this result with the Matilda is exactly what the Ukrainians are going for. They want to make the cost of doing business, of carrying Russian crude oil out of the Black Sea, too expensive, too dangerous for anyone to continue. That's my opinion. And it certainly worked with the Matilda. They took the hit, nobody was hurt. The damage, they say, is reparable, and they're sailing away from Russian crude oil. That's certainly good for the Ukrainians. Rheinmetall has purchased land here in Ukraine to build a shell plant. They're going to build NATO standard 155 millimeter shells. And what's the other one? 122, I want to say. Something like that. So NATO standard shells built here in Ukraine, both for Ukrainians and for the European market. France is pushing that none of the $90 billion loan be spent on U.S. weapons. They are saying that the money from that loan should be spent inside of Europe and on Europeans' weapons manufacturing. And that's not a bad argument to make, to be honest, right? I'm not opposed to that argument. Except, what if European defense industry is not scaled up to produce what Ukraine needs? Ukraine needs patriots, right? There is a Patriot plant, if I'm not mistaken. The Germans maintain a Patriot plant and produce PAC-3 missiles for the European market under a license from, who is it, Raytheon, right? So if the Europeans, and this is the point that Germany and the Netherlands are making, time is of the essence. Ukraine needs air defense assets now. If we force Ukraine to spend the money in Europe, that may slow deliveries of critical supplies, or what Ukraine really needs may not be available from a European supplier. And that's only going to mean more Ukrainian deaths and more Russian advance. So that discussion is being had now, and the details of it should be worked out before the money gets here from the loan agreement. Finally, something really interesting is happening in Scotland. Of course, when isn't it, right? There's always something happening in Scotland. Now, there is a Scottish independence movement, right? Bunch of Scots who don't want to be told what to do by the British and who want to be independent. The Scots, for example, voted to stay in the EU, while the rest of the kingdom of Northern Ireland and Great Britain voted to get out of it. There are on X all these pro-Scottish independent voices that have gone dark since the Iranians shut off the internet. So these manipulations of our social media, where Iranian actors pretend to be Scotsmen, are happening with all of our enemies, the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians. They're all paying their citizens and others to pretend to be Scotsmen, Englishmen, Irishmen, Americans, Canadians, whatever, and spread divisive, poisonous political rhetoric into our comment sections to divide us against each other. And it's worked, right? The Great Britain and Northern Ireland left the EU. They got Donald Trump elected in the United States. All the anti-immigration stuff, all that stuff from Nigel Farage, right? And the vote on Brexit was 48.11, according to Suzanne. And that could be right. But these influence operations are enough to tip the scales. And we are still naive about all of it. The Russians, for the last 15 years, by the analysis of the best intelligence agents in the West, agree that the Russians for the last 15 years have spent about $1.9 billion a year paying people to pretend to be Westerners and spread Russian divisive propaganda and lies into our political discourse. So when somebody gets online and says something racist and stupid, and normally everybody would slap them down, they get 1,000 bots telling them that they're right and that they've got friends. It's unreal. It's unreal. Okay, that's it for me. We can go to Q&A, but let me first again thank the kid who is the sponsor of this live tonight. First-time sponsor. Maybe take a cue from the kid. If you've never sponsored a live, it would be great to have somebody new sponsoring a live. And I have no sponsors for tomorrow or Friday or next week. So any help from anybody is greatly appreciated. Dragon woke me the fuck up today. I was in the middle of a beautiful nap, and he called for no good reason. It could have been a text. Then I was grumpy for 2 hours. Then the lights came on, and I felt better. So thanks a lot to the kid. I appreciate it. Hey, Ben Tilly. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group, and of course, the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk, Roy and Travis, Maddie, and Feisty. Thank you all so much. Okay, questions, comments, points of observation. You're good, Peter. I don't know if I'm good, but I'm not bad. Except when I am. I appreciate everybody thanking the kid. Thank you. Guys, I could not do this without the sponsors. Altered Carbon, I got a quadfecta going on here. I got internet, I got heat, I got lights, I got water. It's pretty fucking great. Did Dragon fix the heating? Dan wants to know. That's funny. You know, I don't know. I do feel kind of warm, but I've got everything going. I've got the electric heater on. I've got the oven on. I've got some gas burners on, and I'm boiling a big pot of water because it has been so cold. I mean, everything is chilled down. So I don't know. I'll have to check the radiator and see. He did ask me to let him know, Dan, if it was doing any good. Thanks, Kiwi Annie. Thanks, Jan. You thought I never got cranky. You are not paying attention at all. Oh, wait, that needed a sarcasm font, right, Paul? There's no sarcasm font in the Tickety Talk. Night, Jan. Little Red hits it on the head. Thanks to all the people who make this possible. It is a group effort, boy. I'll tell you, missing the modern necessities, they really are necessities, and we really do take them for granted. When was the last time you ever thought, oh, how great, I can take a hot shower today? No, you think, oh, I have to take a hot shower today. It's like a chore, and when really it's like the greatest miracle ever. The soup does keep me warm. I just had a bowl. Is Ukraine making any progress? Every day, man. I was just without heat for 6 days, and the heat is on. I hope it comes on a little better. Stacy's mom, I don't really understand the question. Could tweeting about the Warriors' names publicly be dangerous to them against the enemy? I think generally you want to try to keep those at the front anonymous. I don't go posting pictures of anybody at the front. without their express permission. We do. We need a sarcasm font. You're right, Paul. Yeah, Hopat, the next outage, I'll do another soup, a live soup making. Thanks, Fu Man Stew. A soup stream. That's what you're calling it, Hopat, a soup stream. Yvonne, I don't know how anybody stays open in this situation. Although somebody mentioned that somebody on the live last week mentioned that they saw me at Grill do Brazil on Saturday, which I was at, with my colleague Sasha. Many of you know her from Laughter is the Best Medicine, right? She's a regular part of our comedy group. So we were having lunch and doing some catching up, and there was no heat in the restaurant. The waiter literally had a blanket around his shoulders, and we sat there sipping soup and hot coffee, trying to stay warm while we ate. It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. The charcoal soup isn't bad, Seawolf. I mean, I'm eating it. It's not going to waste. I'm going to eat every drop of it. But it is just a little smoky, a little charred. The Russian casualty count, KIA, WIA, MIA, and POW, now stands at 1.223 million. So 1,223,000, I believe, at the last count. Well, Scully, that's why we use call signs, right? That's why I call Dragon Dragon. It's a call sign, not a name. I couldn't agree more, Seawolf. I try to be operationally aware. No, Casey, I'm right in the heart of Kyiv. I'm not aware of any refugee camps in Ukraine, even. I'm not aware of any refugee camps in Ukraine. Most Ukrainians have either been housed in temporary housing or have left the country. Is Poland getting mad with all the missiles getting close to their border? Poland's always mad about something. I mean, I don't know. There's some people in Poland. Oh, is that what you mean, Casey? Yeah. They're not refugee, right? So we said earlier that there are 460, I think, 430 high-rise apartments with no heat in Ukraine right now, in Kyiv right now. And it's my understanding that it's in some of these apartment buildings, they've put up temporary shelters outside where, you have those gas-fired heaters and they pump the heat into the tents. And so residents have a place to escape their freezing apartments, get warm, charge their phones, and that kind of thing. But I wouldn't call them refugee camps. They're like points of invincibility, I think is what they call them here. Dragon worked out the heat today. Will probably be hot soon. He wanted me to go up on the roof with him, but I couldn't do it. I mean, it was like 12 degrees, man. I'm an old man, and it's not a good idea. I could not bring myself to do it. If I had some notice, maybe I could have. But let's go right now. No, I can't do that. There's a guy who live streams from Poland or from Kherson who makes me nervous. Russia could watch. Russia's definitely watching. Lots of crazy neighbors, wondering when the Russian people will stand up against the government after so many casualties. Flip. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, pal. It's not in the Russian DNA to rebel. It's just not. Although I think ICE is going to find out that it's in the American DNA. It's going to be very messy when they do. Very, very messy. Oh, they definitely are, Seawolf. I can tell you who they are from the IP addresses. And I mean, that's a thing. Yes, the war affects all of Ukraine. Nowhere is safe. Yep, guard, that is my worry. Yeah, I'm not interested in anybody who's just interested in body counts. I think that that's obscene. Is Musk Starlink for Ukraine still being used, or are there other companies? George, I'm afraid that the Ukrainians are extremely dependent on it. Now, the Poles are paying for it, right? I think the Poles are actually paying the bill for Starlink. And it's absolutely critical to the Russians. Of course, to the Ukrainians. We see the Russians using it too. We just saw a video of a Russian strapping a Starlink unit to a donkey in Pokrovsk. The striking juxtaposition of mounted cavalry in the traditional hooved sense and a Starlink device is a shattering vision of the devolution of the Russian military. I mean, it's 18th century warfare and tactics driven with 21st century electronics on horseback. Yep, Little Red, that's all. Serfdom is all that the Russians have ever known. Ownership by the commissars is all that they have ever known. And America has never known any of that. And there's an awful lot of guns in America. You know, most countries count guns based on the number of guns per 100 or per 1,000 people. In the United States, it's the opposite. We count the number of guns per one person. Night, Chef Deb. Yeah, Russia's not supposed to have access to Starlink, but they definitely do. So it appears that what happened was they bought them from third-party suppliers in places like United Arab Emirates, Thailand, third-party countries like that who resold them to the Russians. Now, Musk is supposed to geofence Starlink so that it doesn't work in Russia. The problem is that the temporarily occupied territories are not Russia. And if you don't let Starlink work there, then when the Ukrainians make advances, they suddenly don't have Starlink. And Ukrainians die. So if they sneak... Now look, that's not to say that Starlink couldn't easily make a whitelist for the region. They could. But Musk, he's on Putin's side. He's an autocrat wannabe himself. Have you seen this new campaign on X? If the Constitution didn't forbid it, would you vote for Elon Musk for president? He's bucking for president. Look at Russia's superpower. Everyone, fear me. That's all they got, Bernard. Yvonne, I don't see any world in which Donald Trump is going to do anything to help Ukraine do anything but capitulate. It's going to be down to the Congress. Can the Congress stand up to him and make it happen? Yeah, Guard, I think you're smart. X is a sewer of Russian propaganda. And Telegram might as well be called Kremlingram. Nothing happens on it that the Kremlin doesn't know about. Matthew wants to know if I saw the video of an African soldier fighting for Russia with a landmine strapped to him. I saw a video of an African national with a landmine strapped to him being tortured before he was murdered by his Russian comrades. I did see that video. It is important to recognize that African mercenaries have now been captured in Volchansk, Kupiansk, Lyman, Pokrovsk, and Zaporizhia. So these are not isolated incidents of one or two African mercenaries showing up at the front line. It's indicative of a supply pipeline of African nationals who are being drummed into the Russian army, whether they know it or not. As many of them who have been captured have claimed, they did not sign up to be in the SMO. They signed up to do rear guard duty, logistics back in St. Petersburg or Moscow. They were stunned and appalled when their passports were taken from them. They were given a uniform and a gun and told that they were headed to Pokrovsk or the front line, wherever. And more than one of them have said, as soon as I was able to get away from the Russians and flee toward the Ukrainian lines to surrender, I did, because I knew I would be dead if I stayed there. There was just a Russian video released on Telegram. This Russian soldier is filming these, like a unit of Africans, and referring to them as the disposables. And he was jeering at them that they are singing and dancing and having a good time now. Their good time is over tomorrow. None of them are coming back. So that's how the Russians see their African mercenaries. Mars is so dumb. I mean, the whole idea of trying to live on Mars is so dumb. The planet has no magnetic field, right? The core is solid. It doesn't have a liquid iron nickel core like the Earth does. And so when that internal core cools and solidifies, you lose your magnetic shield. The magnetic shielding that keeps your atmosphere from being ripped away by the solar winds. That's what happened to Mars's atmosphere. On top of that, the planet is only a third the mass of Earth. That means the gravity there is only a third of Earth normal. Do you have any idea what living in low gravity does to your body? People that spend a year there will never be able to return to Earth because Earth gravity will crush them on their return, break their brittle bones that have been hollowed out by low Martian gravity. Living on Mars is not a thing that any of us are ever going to do for any length of time. Oh, MJS, you ain't kidding, pal. The ecological disaster of the fiber optic cables is a match for the battlefield superiority that it granted everybody. Ruins of Ukrainian cities are just glistening, covered in fiber optic cables, as though some weird spider had spun its webs over everything. That's going to be a hazard in the soil for years. What's happening with basic food prices in Russia? Now, this is just from memory without looking anything up. So don't quote me on this exactly, but I'll bet you, I'll bet American money, real money, not fucking rubles, that I'm not far off on these numbers. I want to say potatoes year on year are up about 68% across Russia. Beets are up about 57%. So what you're seeing is a rise in inflation across all categories of food products. I think eggs came down a little bit after the avian flu outbreak got contained, but it's not good. Helium-3 is worth $20 million per kilogram. Oh, that's funny. While helium makes you sound like a munchkin. Jan, I'm sorry I can't translate that. Can I? Oh, yeah, look at that. Musk shows how stupid he is. Research shows space moves the brain. Oh, inside the skull, yeah, that's a real problem. Food in Ukraine is up a lot too, I'm afraid. You're not wrong, Morgan. You're not wrong. Everything is up. My bills, now that the heat is on, were in excess of 200 US last month. My electric bill has like tripled since the start of since I first moved in here 3 years ago. Yeah, underground on Mars would be a solution, right? For short stays. For short stays, you can't live that way. I don't know anything about the cost of petrol here, Mark. I don't have a car. I don't drive here. U.S. reckons buying Greenland would cost about $700 billion. Sounds low to me. Sounds very low when you consider that there's an estimated $5 trillion in rare earths alone. Yeah, I saw that, Seawolf. Somebody mentioned it on the live, and I looked it up. One of the astronauts is having some kind of a medical problem. And so for the first time in ISS history, the entire crew is being evacuated a month early. The mission's coming to an end, and they're getting all the guys out of there. Food and energy costs are up everywhere, right? Global inflation, as the supply chain post-COVID fails to right itself because of ongoing global aggression, right? And sanctions. Inflation continues to be a problem across the globe. Greenland is not for sale. They've made that clear. Yes, they have. Do you see a decrease in Russian recruits this year? So not me, Ivan, but we had a leak from inside the Russian Federation. If these numbers are correct, and I think we have every reason to believe that they are, in the third quarter of 2025, now we have not seen the data for Q4 of 2025 yet, but in the third quarter, so that's July, August, and September, the Russian Federation only recruited 39,000 Russians. That's only 13,000 Russians a month. The Russians are losing 30,000 men a month. That is not sustainable. And that trend is likely to have continued through the fourth quarter, though we have yet to get that data. We are now for the first time in this war, at a point where Russian recruitment is less than Russian losses on the battlefield, where the Russian army is seeing a diminution in its numbers of fighting men in Ukraine. I'll tell you, man, I can't imagine being in a Russian trench right now. That has got to be hell on earth. It has got to be hell on earth. Now, the other thing that's driving down Russian recruitment is that bonuses are drying up. Apparently, you can still travel to Moscow and sign up and get a 6 million ruble bonus. But Moscow is the only place you can get that. 11 federal districts of the Russian Federation have suspended all bonus payments entirely. The budgets are bankrupt. They don't have it. Oh, hey, yeah, the budgets are bankrupt in those districts. They don't have the money. What did I say? Right? By January 15th, Russia would be bankrupt. Now, look, I don't really mean that exactly like that, but it's coming. It's coming for sure. Russia's out of cash. When I went to work for the Microsoft Corporation, the Microsoft Corporation had $36 billion in cash on hand. In today's dollars, that's about 64, I think, billion. Russia's net deficit for last year, is $60 billion. About the equivalent cash that the Microsoft Corporation had on its person when I was hired into the company. Russia only has $37 billion in the sovereign wealth fund. Russia only has $37 billion in the sovereign wealth fund. Russia is broke. Make no mistake. They're broke as fuck. And Matthew, the worst is yet to come. This is the worst year of the war so far for Russia. And in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see economic news out of Russia that will curl your 401k. Where'd you get that number, Yvonne? That's an interesting number. 550 billion so far, not counting loss of funding. The gold reserve is down to 173 tons, down from 700 at the start of the war. The Russians always kept a reserve of about 500 tons, but they bulked it up right before the war, obviously to prepare for the war, to insulate them from the effects of the war. They bulked it up to 700 tons. Now they don't even have the extra 200 tons that they bulked it up with. It's down to 173 tons. Okay. Guys, it's well past 1 o'clock. So I'm going to call it a night. Thank you all for hanging out. Big thanks to the kid who sponsored his first live. Thanks, kid. If you've never sponsored a live, if you've been watching the channel but you don't support the channel, this would be a great opportunity to sponsor a live. I couldn't do it without the live sponsors. It's a big part. It's over 40% of my income every month is live sponsorships. Or join the Patreon, which is my bread and butter. But if anybody can do anything to help me out, it would be great. We've got travel coming up here in just 2 weeks, and I am very nervous about how much cash on hand I have for that travel. So for anybody that can help out, that would be great. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group, and of course to the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. Thank you all guys so much. Make it a great day and have a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.